Welcome to BlackUSA.News Morning Show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. Greetings and salutations, all my people out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the honor and privilege of hosting the BlackUSA.News Morning Show. And welcome to you. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to my super producer, Crazy Horse Morgan, who always keeps us on point. Also want to say happy Kwanzaa. Today is Ujima, Collective Work and Responsibility. And we're going to take a little bit of a deviation today. Today's show topic was about getting money. But we're going to talk, we were talking about Kwanzaa yesterday, and we're going to follow up a little bit on that today because there's a story I just became aware of that I really think that we need to spend some time on today. But after that, we're going to talk about getting money. What we realize is that as the economy is changing, so are the opportunities. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways that African Americans as a community that we tend to stay behind is that we aren't able to access capital in the way that some other communities can. And so what that means is that as we try self-determination and collective work, we do not have sometimes the tools necessary, which means that we have to work harder and to achieve, we have to invest more of our personal selves or our non-financial resources or our tribe in order to make the same type of progress. So what we're going to do today is talk about how do we get money? How do we prepare our businesses? How do we prepare our lives so that we're in the best position to get the resources and the capital that we need to be successful? Yesterday's show was amazing. Big shout out to Jamari Natur of Soul Vibers Nation. We talked about the importance of Kwanzaa and also the importance of staying safe during COVID. There was a Kwanzaa event that Soul Vibers Nation had planned for yesterday, but with the Omicron variant and the kind of explosion of cases around them, they decided to cancel that event. But what it gave us was an opportunity to talk about a lot of different things. He was able to take us on kind of his journey of self-discovery and entrepreneurship, kind of the things that motivated him and why and how he got so involved in the Black community in Baltimore. We were able to shout out some really great community members that have been leading the way, like the brothers and sisters who shop and support Everyone's Place. And so we ended up talking about the importance of, as we move forward with Kwanzaa and in the spirit of bringing our community together, we talked about children. We talked about family, and we had a great discussion about his experiences as a father, and also how we can make Kwanzaa a part of our children's lives, and not just, oh, we don't have Christmas, so I guess we have Kwanzaa. And also, we talked a lot about co-parenting and child support and the whole nine. We're gonna come back to that topic later. In 2022, we're gonna end 2021 without that just yet. But we're gonna come back and talk to that. We're gonna come back and talk about child support and things like that. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to my homeboy Keston. You are going to have a great time talking to him about his business and how he anchor himself in to understanding the importance of family and how entrepreneurship is a necessary component in the shift in our economy. All right, a couple of events letting you know. Want to make sure that you stay up on what's going on. Tonight is the virtual business planning event that my company, the Grinding Gang, is hosting. It's tonight from 6 to 7. Yeah, 6 to 7. I'm going to drop the address in the comments so you all can see it. So if you're interested, it is a free show. I mean, it is a free opportunity, and more than happy to join. And we're gonna go over business planning, and maybe we're gonna extend some of the stuff we're gonna talk about today. All right. Let's see. Make sure that's in the chat. What else is going on? What else? Oh, the Great Business Pitch Challenge on January 1st. BlackUSA.News has partnered with two media firms out of DC and New York, along with business consulting firms up and down the I-95 corridor, to create the Great Business Pitch Competition. It is going to be a wonderful event, and the winners of it, they get an opportunity to be mentored and provided technical assistance and mentoring from some of the best people in the business to do it. So if you're interested in the pitch competition, go ahead and visit our visit our Facebook page for more information. All right, cool. And the gang. Tonight is the Donnie Glover Show, right here on BlackUSA.News. And it starts at 7 p.m. Don't miss it. It's always entertaining. You will always learn something from Donnie. Couple of shout outs. Big shout out. We're talking about getting money today. Big shout out to my man's 100 grand, McKeever Conwell II of Rare Breed Ventures. That's Rare Breed VC. I'm gonna drop that in the chat for you guys as well. I want you to know the good people. I have seen him personally put money in people's pockets. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, doesn't matter what you're growing. He can help you understand how to navigate those spaces, making sure that you know how to access capital, and really talk about and really help you understand how do you position yourself for venture capitalists. He specializes in the tech side, so app development, technology development, and stuff like that, wearable tech. But yeah, McKeever Conwell is a great dude, and if you get an opportunity, holler at him at Rare Breed VC. Oh, another great dude is Jim Peterson of M&T Bank. He's vice president over at M&T Bank. He does a phenomenal job, and it's not just that he's a good banker; he's actually a good businessman. You know what I mean? Like he's run his own business. He has been there, done that, and you can follow him on Instagram. He does also does an amazing job at highlighting his customers, highlighting those businesses that are on the grind, that are doing the damn thing and really making a difference in their communities. So again, big shout out to Jim Peterson. I'm sorry, James Peterson. That's I forgot. You know, we have to be professional. Something. I'm not really good at that part because these are my friends. These are people I know. These are people that I am comfortable referring to you guys because I know who they are. All right, so said I was we're going to talk about money today, but before that, I saw that about 12 13 hours yesterday, representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, made a comment about Kwanzaa. And you know, I don't want to misquote her. She said that I'm trying to find out. So let me start it. The College Republicans, it's a national auxiliary of the Republican Party. They actually tried to do some outreach. They posted a tweet that says, "Wishing you a happy and prosperous Kwanzaa." Nothing too serious. No, like, you know, everybody should celebrate. No policies. Just happy Kwanzaa. That is literally it. To which a sitting member of Congress replied, "Stop. It's a fake religion created by a psychopath. You aren't bringing in new voters. You are turning them away. People are tired of pandering and BS." If I'm not mistaken, this is the same lady who said wearing a mask was similar to the Holocaust. Same person, I think. Well, yeah. She said so many weird and racist things, violent imagery often. That's who she is. But What does it say when about the level of contempt when wishing a group of people celebrating a holiday meant to remind them of their strength, of their triumph over tragedy? To respond to that, to say it's a fake religion created by a psychopath. The only thing I'm comfortable that the only thing she really knows about it is that it is a holiday celebrated by Black people, which I guess by definition to her makes it fake, makes it unimportant. There was a long time where I didn't celebrate Kwanzaa, and to be quite frank, I am not an active participant in the Kwanzaa celebration. I observe it because of things and reasons like this. Me observing Kwanzaa, me respecting Kwanzaa is no different than me respecting Hanukkah, is no different than me respecting Ramadan, because these are celebrations that are important to to a culture, whether that is anchored in religion or whether it is anchored in a civic or social engagement. It doesn't make me any less that my Jewish brothers and sisters celebrate Hanukkah, or that I celebrate Christmas, or that I celebrate Kwanzaa. It doesn't make us more or less right. But what we see is the vitriol. What we see is the hate. What we see is the reason that even if you do not celebrate any of these holidays, you have to make sure that you stand up and you defend those that do. Not necessarily because you believe in their holiday or that you believe in their religion or their cause, but the fact that it is theirs. Think about who people are that are willing to say that you are no good simply because of the God that you serve, or the fact that you don't serve a God. That is too often we end up saying that is not who we are. The problem is that when we keep having to say that is not who we are, unfortunately, that is exactly who we are. Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't new. Honestly, she's not even good at racism. It's kind of embarrassing. Like if I was a racist, I'd be like, oh, wow. It's kind of like when you have that militant brother or sister that uses big words to try to impress people and don't know what they mean or use them out of context. It's like, I appreciate where your heart is, but you're making us look bad. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene. But the question is, what are we doing? If for nothing else, just today, whether you believe, follow Kwanzaa, if you even understand it, let's start there. If you don't understand what Kwanzaa is, if nobody has ever sat down to explain it to you, there are so many resources out there. Look it up, because you need to be in a position that when there are more attacks, when people say things about Kwanzaa, because that's not just an assault on this concept, this celebration. Her statement is a dog whistle that is an attack on Black people, outright, unadulteratedly, hard stop, period. So what are we going to do? Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We can do that. We can work together. We can support each other. We can celebrate and highlight Kwanzaa to make sure that she understands that racism won't win. Think about this. For a group of people, speaking specifically about the racists who believe that they are superior, that inherent in either their genetics, their training, their mindset, their some capacity that they are superior. They spend a lot of time trying to prove it. They spend a lot of time talking about it or trying to make it happen. I don't, I don't think Usain Bolt goes to, a middle school track meet and tries to stack the game against the middle school runners or high school runners. If you are truly superior, why do you have to keep cheating? You have buried us. We grew. You have exiled us. We've thrived. You have done everything. So for those who are racist and believe themselves to be superior, or even if you don't call yourself a racist, but believe in the inherent superiority of your race, help me understand. Where did you get that from? Upon what evidence? Because a lot of the evidence that I have seen people use for cultural superiority, they tend to forget that there were cultures who had very similar technologies, buildings, architecture, art, wealth, while Europeans were still in caves. That's a real thing. Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is not going to be the last thing she says. And I guarantee you it won't even be the most ignorant. But every time we need to fight back. We need to push back. And whether you are believe in the more passive non-violence or pacifism, or whether you are the more militant, there's statements that need to be made. There needs to be consequences to those actions. She needs to be voted out of office. It is coming up now. As we've talked to political candidates, and as we continue, this is an example of why your vote matters. This goes beyond Kwanzaa. This goes beyond Marjorie Taylor Greene. This goes to the heart of racism. This goes to the heart of the injustice that we continue to suffer as a community. This is what we have to do. Absolutely. Michael, using the principles of Kwanzaa to transform communities, that's what it was about. That is what it was about. It was created to say, hey, this is what we can do to take back some of our history. This is what we can do to show people what we are and what we can accomplish. That was the purpose of it. The principles are all about how we communicate with each other, how we support each other, how we grow each other, how we thrive. And so we need to make sure that we are active. We need to make sure that not only do we vote, we volunteer and we contribute. Because don't get it twisted. One of the reasons that she can say unabashedly what she does is because she writes checks. She writes checks because people write checks to her. They love. This is not this is what I say. This is not a problem in the program. This is its design. She is exactly what millions of people in America want. And we have to make sure that we take it from them. We have to make sure she gets voted out of office, and not just her, because this is not a problem of people necessarily. This is not, we get rid of oneself. This organization, this mindset needs to be attacked at its source. It needs to be attacked at the educational system that provides a context that creates the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. The education system which whitewashes history to help validate the racist assumptions and engagements of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. These are the same, and the reason that we don't just fight the person, because these are the same concepts that police that have murdered Black people use. Derek Chauvin, the rampant, reckless disregard and the dehumanization. Like, that's a real thing. And it starts because they get emboldened because their leaders tell them it's okay. Having no information about the holiday of Kwanzaa, her first public response was to say that it was fake and that it was created by a psychopath. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm going to dig in. I'm going to try harder. I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to try to make a difference because we have to. If she continues to do her thing, we're going to have problems for a while. So, all right, okay, all right. Enough about that. I'm sure this is going to come up because ignorance ain't going nowhere, racism ain't going nowhere. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll unfortunately have to come back to this again. But today we're talking about getting money. We're talking about how do you position yourself, your business, particularly your business or your nonprofit organization, to get the resources you need to enter the market space and to be competitive in the market space. All right. So let's take a look. I'm try a new system here, not new system, a little bit. Let's see. There we go. All right. One of the things that I wanted to kind of run through is when you're thinking about business or when you're thinking about creating a nonprofit organization, there are ways that a lot of people get their business done, or a lot of ways they get funding and the money to move forward. A lot of that starts with self-funding. The reality is that very few people are going to want to invest resources in you when you haven't invested in yourself. One of the big things about the 2000 election, we talked really heavily back then about Florida hanging chads and all that nonsense. But here's the reality: Al Gore lost his home state. If I remember the numbers correctly, he left his home. If he had won his home state, he would have won the whole ball of wax. And so, I used to joke with my friends and said, like, if that should be a requirement, that if your people don't vote for you, the people who know and you can benefit from you the most don't vote for you, that should be a story. Hell, when Donald Trump was running for president of the nomination, it was really interesting that the Republican from New York, they abstained from the vote. So that should have been a sign. The next is friends and family. And the reason I'm going through this is because I want you to understand that this is a lot of what the funders are going to expect from you from the beginning. See, they have goals of their own, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But this is what they are expecting you to do. This is how they are expecting you to engage your business and develop your financial portfolio, because they want to see if your resources can get you to where at least make some progress, show some success, because they want to reduce risk. And again, we'll talk about that later. Your friends and family is the next place that traditionally people tend to go to for investment or for funding. Most of the friends and family money, they're in the form of gifts. Jeff Bezos received what is it, $300,000. Though friends and family not only provide funding, but a lot of friends and family in the traditional in kind of the traditional business sense, they help provide access to funding. So, what happens in a lot of families, especially those who have been in business over multiple generations, the person who started the business will develop a relationship with the financial institution. And then what will happen is that even if their heirs or the people that are following them through, they want to start a business of their own or continue in the footsteps in their parents or whatever footsteps, their parents or whomever would introduce them to their banker. They would introduce them to people who had money and making sure that they understood the vocabulary and the language of money, because finance is the language of money. And the reality is that bankers will judge you, bankers and other funders who are in the game, they will judge you on your literacy. If you don't understand the importance of a balance sheet or understand the importance of cash flow and the difference between cash flow and budgeting and those types of things, you present to them a risk. The less you because they don't know if you're going to be successful. So what they're looking for is a number of factors to support the fact that you'll be successful. That's all this list kind of is, because self-funding, you believe you could be successful, so it should be the easiest to get money out of you. Your friends and family, they know you. Should be not as easy as getting it from you, but it should be easier to get it from your friends and family. if they have it. Now, that's one of the issues around financing in the Black community. The reality is that given the disproportionate net worth, the average, I think the median white household has $170,000 in assets, and I think the median Black household has something in the teens, like 15, 16. Um, and so, given that big disparity, a lot of times our people in our communities, our friends and families, just don't have it. Um, the thing to remember is that as money is a tool, we'll talk about this a little bit. As money is a tool, you can figure out what you need and maybe barter those things. Maybe, I've had a couple of my clients who, when their retired mothers have been their support staff. I've had a client who her friend's retired mother is part of her production team. Like that is also a way that you can help kind of fund your business is through the barter system. Same thing in you can do barter with equity. Equity is when you take on an investor. Now you can barter that. So, I've done things where for business consulting service that a client may not have been able to afford, especially somebody I knew or somebody that I really I wanted to invest in, or I thought was going to have do a great job. What I would do is that I would exchange my services for an equity stake in their business. So, you may get, $10,000-$15,000 worth of services for either a revenue share or an equity, a stake in your business. For a couple of the people I've done it with, it has worked really well because I know I am comfortable that their businesses will be successful. The thing that it also did that I hadn't anticipated is that it made me more vested in their business. I ended up, and it was worth it, but I ended up giving more services than I had anticipated because I wanted to make sure it was successful because now I'm invested. But I do a really great job of screening because that's money that I may not get if I don't know how your business is going to be successful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I know we only got 33 minutes, but we're going to talk about a lot of things. Debt is another way to get funding for your business, and one of the realities for the Black community is that a lot of us are afraid of debt. We have seen debt take people's houses. We have seen debt destroy businesses. We have seen debt plague people. And, I have been on the other side of bill collector calls. That's no fun. And so those types of consequences have led a lot of us in business to say, hey, I'm never taking on debt. Um, Debt isn't bad if you do it well. And when I say do it well, is understanding that the return on the investment of any debt that you take on has to be greater than the interest payment as well as include your profit margin. Let me explain that. If and be making up numbers just to keep the math simple. Let's say you need to borrow $100, and if once you borrow the $100, you need $100 to do something in business to support a client. If you get the $100, you will get a return of $200. Okay, so and let's say the interest rate on that, you got it from a factoring company. Interest rate is about 25%. So that's going to cost you at least $125 to repay, but you made 200. So that's $75 of gross profit. If you can live in that, then that's good debt. But let's change it a little bit. Let's say that you get $100 and you're only going to and you do the same thing, and the repayment amount is $125. But let's say that your customer is only going to pay you $130. Well, you're only making $5, and that might not be enough for you. But it depends on what you want. And those are the ways to think through debt. Figuring out how much is it going to cost you and how much are you going to benefit from it. That's the way that you make debt work for you. Revenues are always a great way of increasing your sales or increasing your funding. A lot of times people don't understand that cash flow is king. If you don't have money coming into the door, you don't have a business because you have obligations in most cases that are active and ongoing. And if you're not bringing enough money, you're not able to pay them. So bringing in more money is a really great way to get get funding for your business. Additionally, if you haven't gotten any revenue, then it's going to be difficult for a funder, whether it is in equity or in debt, to feel comfortable investing or loaning money to you because you haven't shown an ability to get it to make money. Now, if you can control your expenses, that is also a way of using or getting funding. So again, this is a really great opportunity to do things like bartering. I have a makeup artist who, well, not a makeup artist, but a makeup brand that partners with a perfume brand because they're targeting the same people. Well, if they were to exchange, if they were to co-market and sell each other's products, well, that lowers the expenses for both of them because now they're getting into greater markets without having any additional cost. Potentially, depends on how they structure the deal. There are grants, and grants are available, but don't forget, just like you saw it, hundreds of other people saw it. And the question again was going to come back to, why would they give it to you? All right, that was a lot. For those of you watching live, yeah, sorry, it was a lot. But that's one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand. Getting money isn't necessarily a simple concept. It's a simple thing to do. Just because you want it, just because you are planning to use it well, and just because you believe that you'll be able to turn it over, does not mean that the funder will agree with you. They want a lot of times they want to see, they want to make sure, because they want to make sure that their investment in you is well placed, because there are other places they could spend their money. If you're asking me to, let's say you need $10,000. Whoops, I jumped at you. Let's say you need $10,000. And let's say I happen to have $10,000 that I'm looking to do something with. Well, now it is your job, whether I am a bank, family member, friend, or what have you, to convince me that I should do something other than keep my money or give it to somebody else. It is now your job to help me understand how valuable investing or lending or gifting to you can be. So one of the things you need to do is understand who I am. And not William Honolulu. I mean, I'd appreciate it if you did, because it's nice to be understood and nice to be known. But your funder, you need to make sure that you find out what it is that they want. What are they doing? A lot of times people say, well, I'm going to the bank because the bank loans money. That's their job. That's their business. But the reality is that the bank loans money because they want to make a profit. The bank loans money to certain people because they want to avoid, or they have a certain risk profile, and this person meets the risk. They choose certain people because they meet their profit margins. They choose certain people because they're going to grow. Banks aren't really they're like every other institution or every other business. They're okay starting small relationships if those relationships continue to grow, because remember, that's how they make money. So sometimes you look at your business idea and said, oh, my business is going to be great, and what the bank is thinking is that, I can do a $50,000, $100,000 loan. All right. But this business looks like its market potential taps out at 500,000. Why? Because remember, the banks want the long-term money. They into that long money, and they have options. Just like you wanted 10,000 for 50. Well, let's also start some real life stuff about banks. Banks don't really start making money on commercial loans until about 250,000. So if your business isn't coming to the table looking for a $250,000 loan, a lot of banks aren't really going to be excited about it. So that's one thing. Banks are also looking for organizations that, again, are going to grow. So if your business looks like it doesn't have a lot of room to grow, then you need to make sure that you tailor your request to the banks or to the financial institutions that actually are looking for businesses like yours. And people often ask me, how do you start a relationship with a banker? Well, just like you start one with anybody, you reach out to them. Again, shouted out Jim Peterson earlier. He is a wonderful dude. And he is absolutely somebody that I would go to, or that I do go to, real talk, to help figure out how to help my clients and other people. Let's talk about, I want to talk a little bit about, um, I'm sorry, I'm looking through the slides. Some basic things. Switch to this. All right. What the 168 is that the 168 is that you have 168 hours All right, so that's that. Whoops, let's take that off. Yeah, so that's kind of the baseline. Some of the preliminary things that for you to know and kind of think through as you're making some of the decisions about how to get funding. Um, let's see. There's a couple other things a few other things I wanted to talk about, and the whole Marjorie Taylor Greene threw us off a little bit. So I'm gonna go through some of these, and again, don't hesitate to join me today at the virtual business planning workshop. I'll be going into some of these things in greater detail and how they all kind of jibe with planning your business. When you go to the funder, you can go to the funder beforehand and ask them, what do they want? What are they looking for? What do they want to build? What type of relationship are they looking for? You can go and ask them, hey, in a year, or I am in the early stages of considering my own business and really launching. I'm looking to develop a relationship. What kind of documents are you all looking for? What do I need for you? What type of insurances? What type of credit scores? And while a lot of them may not be comfortable answering those questions about you specifically, change the phrasing. Say, hey, in the last 6 months, how many businesses like mine have you done business with? Have you invested in? And since you've been here, since in the company's history, what do those statistics look like? Because understanding what those statistics look like gives you a better sense of how the funding opportunity may work. So, for example, if and this has happened, there have been people who wanted to apply for a grantor because the grantor says they do funding between $5,000 and $500,000. And so, one of my customers, client said that they were going to apply for 350,000. I said, okay. And I said, but let's go back and take a look at where they've been making their grants and things like that. What we found was that they did a couple of 500,000 ones like years and years before that. But by and large, they stuck around 50,000. So what would have happened without understanding that is that my client would have spent time, effort, and money applying for a $350,000 grant when the average is about 50,000. Now, does that mean that they won't do a $350,000 grant? That's not what that means at all. But what it does mean is that you now have a different sense, or my client had a different sense of the risk associated with this particular venture. And when you call them, like, ask them what's profitable. Ask them what's profitable for them. Ask them how long, does the people that they've done business with, how have they developed relationships? Do they send them newsletters? Do they meet with them once a quarter, or once a couple times a year? What does that look like? Because the more you ask them that, the more information you have, the better positioned you'll be so that you can actually get that money when you're ready. The next thing is planning becomes exceptionally helpful. The larger your planning window, the more likely it is that you'll have enough time to not just develop the relationship, but also put those things in place to help you get the funding that you're looking for. Because this is about changing people's mind. They had no idea who you were. They hadn't planned to loan you any money or invest any money or give you any money. So you have to create a value proposition for them that explains who you are and how them investing, lending, or gifting you will have the benefit that they will appreciate. If it's a grantor, the grantor may have a very specific place in their portfolio to work with youth. Well, if you're no longer working with youth, if you're only working with, let's say now you've shifted to adults, well, that won't be a good match for you. Even if you can do amazing things, it's the fit. And a lot of your job in seeking funding is to find who you fit with. Understanding who they are, understanding what they want. And just like any other relationship, Your first one probably won't work. Now, for those of you all who have relationships with love at first sight and all those types of things, yay you. But for a lot of the rest of us, it's about dating. Same thing with funding. For a lot of the rest of us, it's about the application. For a lot of the rest of us, we spend a lot of time meeting people, networking, finding opportunities, and not necessarily finding the relationship or the fit that we're looking for. But what I have learned is that in that process of dating, in that process of completing applications, in that process of explaining and presenting your business idea, what I found is that I've identified kinks in my process. During that time, when people would ask me questions that were sometimes uncomfortable, I started realizing that there were things that I didn't know. So it's not just trying to knock it out the park with your first loan application or with your first contract or your first time out the gate. Very few people have that type of success, especially those who are starting from scratch. That's not even a reasonable expectation. If it happens, it is a gift and a godsend, and you better celebrate it. But if that is your business model, it may make being successful in business a little bit more difficult than it has to be for you. Let's see what else. Uh, the power dynamic. Because you are the one in need, or that you are the one that has a desire, the power dynamic is against you. You are going to be in a subordinate position because they have what you want. Now, at a certain point in business growth in certain communities and markets, you can reach the level where people want to do business with you. I have a couple of clients now who banks are actually, working with them like, hey, they called them to ask them, did they want to borrow money? Like that's how, but they've been in business 5-10 years. They have a history with that bank. Not only had one of them in particular, not only did not only have they been doing business with this bank for a while, they've been supportive of some of the bank's philanthropic activities. Just and again, I know this person. I know it hasn't been on any kind of let me go and stalk them and blah blah blah. It's because they found a place that fits. The working with children that this particular bank does, this is part of their heartstrings. So what do? They volunteered, and that got people to see them, and they got to talk to other people at the bank. And it just started to blossom in a relationship that ended up being financially productive. That's the reality of how some of these relationships work. The other thing is make sure that you access through your networks. During COVID, one of my clients needed a PPP loan. And there was a lot of confusion, and a lot of bankers and financial institutions were confused as to what was supposed to be going on with the administration and forgiveness and those types of things. But this one of this business's staff members happened to be part of a fraternity. And one of their fraternity members worked at a bank and was in the business banking section. Now, there's nothing nefarious that went on. There was no like, hey, on the shield, let's do this. What happened was simply that because of their relationship, the brother at the bank was able to give some insight that wasn't necessarily readily available to everyone. Kind of like, we don't know what's going on. It's like these are the types that we have approved. No details, no identifying information, but really being able to give some insight as to the operations and the thinking at the bank changed everything. They were able to save a lot of time instead of developing or trying to go through other institutions and just really knocking on doors and hoping to get a right answer. They were able to get to somebody that they knew because of the network, because that one of their employees had a relationship with someone who worked in the bank. And it was wonderful because it wasn't their bank. And that banker was also able to pull a large part of their banking relationship over to this bank. So it ended up being mutually beneficial. So the business actually got the credit that it needed to be successful, and the gentleman and the banker got some new business, and both of them did it during the time of economic trials and tribulations. It's really important, and we're going to wrap up in a few. It's really important that we do take a look at how we get money, how we work together, so that we can change the trajectory of our community, so that we can have the resources that we need in order to raise our children in safe and healthy environments, so that we can build communities that we can be proud of, that everybody isn't trying to move out of the neighborhood, that they're trying to move back in. So I am grateful for the opportunity, um, to be able to share my voice on how people can build businesses and build our community and really anchor in. And we're going to continue to bring you that throughout all 2022 and beyond. This is important. How we treat our community is important. Black people are important. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all my people out there in internet land, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, I have had a great time, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all tomorrow as we holla at my homeboy Gaston. Have a great day.